And good evening, and welcome to one of FM Central's Football Manager shows. We have changed the date today because I wasn't available yesterday. Paul also wasn't available because he had toothache, so poor Paul. But we do have Ben here as usual. So hello, Ben.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
As you can see, we've got our website here, www.footballmanagercentral.com, and it has been Christmasized, ready for the festive season. Lovely logo created by our admin Jay, and the red FM Central created by Paul. All looks fantastic. For our topics tonight, we're going to be discussing, and our first topic is going to be staff attributes. So your assistant, your physios, your coaches, your director of football, what sort of attributes do you want in them coaches? So we'll start off, Ben, with probably the most obvious one, assistant manager. What do you look for in your assistant manager?
I guess everybody plays it their own way, but I try and think of the assistant manager as the kind of in-game me. So I want somebody who can spot potential and ability, preferably just ability, but if they have potential as well, then obviously I want that. So that's the judging player ability and judging player potential. I want him to have tactical knowledge because I want him to be able to do the opposition instructions because I'm not too great at them, so I kind of let him do that. Unless there's something I kind of think that should be in there, then I'll do that as well. But and aside from that, it's just motivating because sometimes I let the assistant manager do the team talks, and I don't want him to screw it all up. So just those really, and as long as he has a good personality and preferably has the same formation that I like to use, then that's the guy I tend to go with. How about you?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Everyone's got to think that the assistant manager is your second in command, but don't use him too much. Some people tend to rely on him too much. We did last week, we talked about training and setting the assistant to do training. You look at it, in the higher leagues, they're going to have higher stats for the ones that Ben has just said, but in the lower leagues, you're going to get some fairly average to poor assistant managers with stats of like 7, 8, possibly down to 5 in the stats that you're looking for in an assistant manager. You don't want them
No.
doing everything, especially like motivating. If they've got a stat of 5, they're not going to be very motivating for the team. And if you can motivate them with your team talks, use them well. We'll go on to next the coaches. Now, for me, I like a lot of balance in coach. I don't know if you agree with that, Ben. By balance, I mean I like to have someone that specialises in attacking, someone that specialises in defending, and also that mental stat as well. I like to have a mental coach in there. I don't know why. I don't know if it helps on Football Manager to have a mental coach that helps with the psychological side of the game. But I always like a little bit of a balance. Look for someone who's got a high stat in defending, high stat in attacking, and then all the others. High leagues, I'll look 20 is always the maximum you start with. But obviously in the low leagues, you can just keep working your way down and find some of the best stats. Even on my save now, I've got at least one for each, even if their stats are 12 for one and something for the other. There's a nice little balance that you can get, and it especially helps with the training. That's when you can start setting this coach to do the attacking side of the game, that coach to do the defending side of the game. You think you can also, if I can remember, you can select the mental side and also the goalkeeping coaches. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I do that as well. I try and get specialists. I know that's not always possible at every level, but that's definitely the aim because you want to have light or average. I want to say intensity, but that's the wrong word. On the coaches tab at the bottom, it's got like the stars and the list of. I'm going to say intensity again because I can't remember the word, but it, it's bad when it says heavy because it means they aren't getting enough individual attention. So you kind of want it a bit more average or even light, and then you know that they're getting the players are all getting a good amount of time with that particular coach throughout the week before the games and everything. Um, I try and get. I haven't quite found the balance in Football Manager 15. I had it pretty well in 14. I would always just look for um, discipline, determination, motivating, plus their specific attribute that I needed, like the defense or the fitness or whatever. Because I found that's how you always got a 4 to 5 star coach, which is obviously what you want at the top levels. But I quite like now on on 15 that you have the ability to put your own attributes in there and actually be a coach yourself. Because I think that's really good for teams at the lower level who don't have the sort of budget that they have in the Premier League or Serie A or wherever. Because you can get involved yourself and you don't then have to hire someone on top of that then. You've played at lower level a lot more than me. Do you find that's actually a useful addition then this year?
Yeah, the coaches that have um, maybe they specialize in one certain stat, but if they're specializing in one, and you have certain players that you want to train on a certain stat, especially in the lower leagues, and the way I am now with Colvia in the second B in Portugal, just been promoted there, and I'm trying to train the defenders to be a lot more balanced and not just rushing into tackles because I tend to concede a lot of goals for some reason. I don't know if it's my tactic. That may be something I may need to look at in the future. But I've always got that defensive coach that works with the defenders, solely working on their tackling and trying not to get them to rush in. I have that on the tactic setup. Not I can't remember what the team instruction is called, where they're not just charging into tackles like madmen, which you seem teams
The
seem to get
standoff
in.
bit?
Yeah, that's the one. Stand off more, but then I have closed down more on, but in and it's more discipline. That's where the balance comes out, and that coach is always there, and I always have it for the attacking coach as well. I always seem to have very, very good attacking players who can score loads of goals, but then the defense just seems to either go, "Yay, we've scored loads of goals," then the defending just seems to fall asleep. So I always have that defensive coach working and working and working. He probably gets bored working with these people because they never seem to listen. But that's the joys of managing in the lower league. You just have to try and find that balance. And I
Yeah, make
have,
do.
if you can see the post, yeah, that I've got open now.
Yeah, yeah, big
Yep.
list.
This is what we put together this at the start during the FM15 beta. And you can download this where we've talked about assistant managers here. And I think Ben, you said all them stats there: attacking, defending, man management, the tactical knowledge, technical, motivating, determination, and adaptability. I don't think you mentioned that one.
No, you'd be lucky to find a guy with all of them. That's
Yeah,
why I kind of
yeah,
only
that's
stick
where
to
you
the
can
middle one.
download them and they'll come up on the list, but then they'll all come up as 15, and you can just take
Yeah,
them off or take the stats down. This is the recommended stats that you would like for an assistant
in
manager.
an ideal world, yeah.
In an ideal world, yeah, the adaptability is just if you have an assistant manager that's just coming into the club, they need to adapt straight away to what the style of football is, who the players are, how the players train. It's a difficult thing. Usually in the lower leagues, I've stuck with the assistant that's already there because he knows the players, and you can always check that player knowledge, which is something we can show in future podcasts where you can look for these coaches that have the player knowledge of the clubs. So we'll go on to the director of football. Which do you have a director of football on your save at the moment?
Um, no, I don't. I'm pretty bankrupt, so I haven't gone for the superfluous coaches, if you like. I have in the past though, and I'll usually use him as a like kind of an extra scout. Like I'll have the judging player ability and potential. I don't really care about the rest because all I want him to do is go and make bids for players, and then when it gets to the point of arranging contract details, then I'll take a look at that player that he's found, and then usually just reject them because he's bidding for all sorts of players all over the world for far too much money. But what do you use him for? Because that's all I've ever thought to use the director of football for.
Yeah, I started using it because I started off at Coventry on my save. If anyone is following me, and then I went straight down to the lower leagues where my player knowledge of players was absolutely horrific. So I need a director of football that can just put in some bids for some players, and then once I know they've made a bid, I can check out their stats and their attributes, and then I can make my own judgment because you can always do that in the staff roles where you can
Yes.
select the
Yeah.
director of football can put bids in, but that bid doesn't have to be accepted. Their contract doesn't have to be accepted. That can be put down to the manager, which
Yeah,
is
you're the
you
one.
on the
Yeah.
game. So I've always used. I'm still using it now because I'm now in Portugal in the Secunda B, which I'm getting used to the kind of player standard now. But as I've just been promoted, I'm trying to find better quality players so I can stay in the division. Currently, I'm in the relegation zone, but only by one place. I'm fighting, but that's what the board have predicted me to do, to fight bravely to avoid relegation.
Nice.
So the fight is on there. I think we'll move on to, I think we'll enjoy this one, the head of youth development, which as Man United fans, I think we seem to pride ourselves on this one. I always love the head of youth development, especially in at the top leagues, especially if you're a Man United manager, Chelsea, or anybody in the top leagues. Head of youth development is always a good thing to have. Yeah, you'll get the money to spend, but what is better than bringing through a young player and going, I've brought through this player. Jay done it with his son. I think he's done it with a few other players, and there's loads of people that I've seen on our FMCentral Facebook group that have brought these players up through their youth system, and it's brilliant to see. And sense of pride that you have when you have a good head of youth development, because it affects the youth intake days, because they go out and find the youth intake, and we've set determination, discipline, because if they've got to be able to discipline these young players, you can't have a young ego in there that's going to, I need these thousands and thousands of pounds a week. The motivation to go out and find these players, obviously working with youngsters because they're going out and finding these players, and then the judging potential, which how good are they going to be, and that adaptability again, how is the club run, what sort of players are they looking for in the future. I mean, do you look for them stats in the head of youth development? Would you agree with
Um,
that?
Probably not as many as that, to be honest, because I use him for the same reason, as to bring through the youth, obviously, because that's his role. But sometimes I like to let him make the decisions on who's going to make it or not. That's typically I'll only do that if I'm rushing through a save. So like I've got my online save at the moment with Chelsea, and I've got the head of youth development there just doing whatever the hell he wants down in the youth team, because Chelsea don't care about youth, obviously. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, so typically I'll just look for judging player ability and potential and working with youngsters, because I don't really mind about the rest. Because I don't know about you, but I always have a manager of the youth team, so he kind of does the discipline, determination, motivating side of things.
yeah, that's when they're there. I think it's discipline just when are they disciplined enough to come into the club and disciplined enough to go and find these players. I think we have that stat on if I can find the under 21s one. Yeah, under 21s has discipline, so does the under 18s. I think it's more vital at that level where the discipline is there, where especially if you're a manager, that although it's a simulation, this game, we've always got to remember that, always have that discipline there, because you could get a player moaning, oh, I'm not playing enough, but then he could be an under 18s player. You're not playing
One
enough.
thing that isn't listed on there that I always go for is the personality of the head of youth development. Do you ever look at that?
Ah, that's a very good point. It possibly should be added, because I can't remember that there are different types of personality which everyone should look at, and we probably will add that. That's a very good point. So we always get. I
Just
can't.
because the
What
reason why
personalities do
it's
we get?
important, from what I've read anyway, is that the personality of your new gens in every youth intake are not necessarily directly related to the personality of the head of youth development, but they are influenced by. So if you've got a head of youth development who's spineless, for instance, which is one of the bad personalities, then you might find you've got some spineless youth players as well. So it's definitely
Yeah,
something worth considering.
yeah. All these things sort of link. The attributes of the coach can always mask onto the players. So
Mm,
you've always got to consider these things. I think we've said physios. Which one is more important? Fitness coach. This is one I always like to have, because I think you're exactly the same. You always like to build up fitness, especially during
definitely.
pre-season.
Yeah, definitely.
The fitness goes up to heavy. Start training them, and obviously they're going to need that fitness dash, the man management, motivation, determination, and that level of discipline, because they need the fit, especially at the higher levels. The fitness needs to be there, and it's also dependent on your style of football. I don't know if you'd agree with if you play a quick style of football like blood and thunder, as Ben would say, which I think that kind of links with your tactic, your 4-3-3. It's a very high pressing, get back and forward game,
Hmm.
which I've noticed when I've used your tactic, the players have to be very good with their fitness, and we will
Definitely.
talk about Ben's post in a minute after this when we've talked about the fitness coach. Would you look for those in a fitness coach, or would you look for anything else?
Yeah, all of them, definitely all of them. I don't
Ben?
think there's anything else I particularly use. But yeah, definitely all of those.
Yeah. But as I said, this is available to download on our website, or it's quite easy to find. You can either go into Football Manager and find it through these guides, or you can go at the top and search staff, and it will come up as the second option, which I've just done. I'll show you that here. I did it earlier if you do look back, but just type in staff, and it's the second option called staff filter download, and follow the instructions on the post. It's very, very simple. We'll go back to the home page and we'll find Ben's 4-3-3, which is now, we all know Ben as the tactical wonder man on FMCentral, always giving tactical advice, and he has been nice enough to show the tactic that he's using on his, I can't remember the name of the club. What's the name of the club you're at?
The easiest way to say is AFC Astra.
AFC Astra, which is, it lays out as a 4-1-2-1, 4-1-2-2-1, but it
Yeah.
plays out as a 4-3-3.
Hmm.
A very, very good tactic. I've been using it myself in the lower leagues, and it seems to be working out very well. I think we'll let Ben explain how he came about building this tactic. You can read about it, but we'll just let Ben describe how he came about it, just as I put the image up there. So go ahead,
Um,
Ben.
well, without going over what it says in the article anyway, that's just the kind of football. Like that's my ideal, like stylized kind of idea of how I want football to be played. This isn't entirely how I'd like it. It's just how I've got it working for Astra. Because I think I said in the article that I've got these guys on fluid, but I'd like to have it on very fluid, ideally, because that's when you get a real unit of a team. But I don't have the players for that yet. Obviously, that's my aim, but I'm not there yet. But the idea behind it is just it's kind of emulating the football we saw from Barcelona and Ajax before them, and those sort of teams of the total football sort of thing. And the 4-3-3 I find is kind of the best use of space on the pitch.
Hmm.
Typically, because you can see there's a good balance between the players. There's a lot of room for them to move in. Excuse me. But there's always a player on hand, or at least this is the aim, to provide a quick short pass to. So I don't know how it played out for you when you tried it with a different team, but I'm curious to
Well,
find
it,
out
it
because
played out. It seems to be a very. It's a very. When I played it, I try and keep to a very simple style of football, which its tactics seems to allow. Because, as you said, the pass is always there. There's not too many complicated roles, which a lot of people seem to do when I'm looking at tactics down in the Facebook group. They've always got these nice little player roles in, like the complete wing back or the wing back on attack or a ball playing defender in there. And if they don't understand these roles, don't bother using them. Obviously,
yeah,
Ben understands what a false nine is, which is basically, we can describe it as one player. Wayne Rooney plays in a false nine kind of role. It's giving support, and he's not just sitting up waiting for the ball to be passed to him. He comes to get the ball himself, or he just gives that short option. What I also do like about this tactic is the two centre mids, which they're not in no complicated role. They're just the basic centre mid on support role, and one of them, which, as he explained in the post, the one who has the better work rate and the better tackling is the one who you tell to close down more. And that seems to be working out really well. And they're roaming from their position, looking for the ball,
yeah.
getting the ball, and they just have that simple pass on. And that leads on to, would help if I was on the post and not on the hangout. So this very
Before about the
simple.
central midfield, but I find that's probably the position where I tinker around the most with because although they always start the game in that picture you had up with the support role, if I'm chasing the game, they're both on attack. There's no doubt about that. And sometimes I'll mess with the other roles too to make it more attacking. But when we are trying to protect a lead, or if I feel like it's not quite going our way, then I'll either put one or both on defend as well, which looks a little illogical
Hmm.
to an extent. But it does have an impact because if they're the ones controlling the tempo of the game, then you want them in and amongst everything that's going on the pitch. And games are won or lost in central midfield always.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old well, it's kind of what Jose Mourinho kind of does. If he's winning the game, he'll set his midfield to come back more, all the players to come back and just defend that lead. I don't know if you have a lot of 1-0 wins with this tactic, and or if you're completely controlling games. I tend to be getting a lot of 1-0 wins and just getting the goal. But because I'm in a division that I'm fighting for relegation for, a 1-0 win is good enough. Is good enough for me. It's 3 points at the end of the day if I can survive with 1-0 wins.
Yeah, I'll often get some close games. Sometimes I get 1-0s, but I almost concede every game because I'm having a lot of trouble with my defense because I don't have any money to replace them, and I had a massive falling out with number 25 there as well, so that didn't help me. But
He was your
yeah,
captain, wasn't he?
yeah, he is my captain,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Work in progress, let's say.
It's all. That's one thing everyone has got to remember. A tactic is always. It's never finished. I think
Yep.
that's what Ben said. It's never finished. You can always tweak it in some way, and you can't. To me, you can't always have one tactic there. This will be one of Ben's tactic, but then you can always have up to three on Football Manager. I don't know if do you have three available
I
that you use.
try and have two that they are really familiar with, and then I use the third for kind of um, if I find something that in a game that kind of works, like I just tinker around with it, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Then I'll just use that as a third. But typically, I'll just use two. That's probably not the best way to do it, but it does work for me.
Yeah, I have three, and I'm exactly the same as you. I have two that are kind of similar in a way, but then I have one that's kind of not similar, and that's where if I'm playing in a game, sometimes I tend to lose that game. Where that's where I found tactics all seem to be similar because you have two tactics that are similar, then you have one that isn't. Their familiarity and the player understanding of what they're doing in that tactic just seems to go out the window if they've been playing in these two tactics for
Yeah,
so many games. And then you introduce this tactic, and they're like, huh, "What's going on here?
yeah.
What are we
Kind of like
doing? How are
how
we
it
playing?"
all went down for Louis Van Gaal. It's quite similar.
Yeah, that's a great example. This is the mentality and the team shape which has now been put into Football Manager, which is kind of weird. The counter. I assume that you changed the mentality. I assume you start on counter, and then if you are
Um,
controlling the game, you may change it.
Not too much. I want counter because I want them to play patiently. I think if I was a better team, if they were more technical and just at a higher level with better players, then I would probably go for control because I want them to be more adventurous with the ball. But at the moment, for a kind of in between a possession game and a high pressing Dortmund style game, I'm going to stick with counter because I want them to be patient.
Mm.
Otherwise, it's control. But I don't tend to change the mentality too much. I just use the team instructions instead.
Yeah, I'll just get onto the team instructions now. It's very, very, what Ben always says, don't put team instructions on if you don't know what they're doing. This has what, one, two, three, four, five instructions, which is the
Yeah,
bare minimum for what you need for building a tactic. The push higher up is that he wants them to get the ball very quickly, but close down more, get stuck in. But the main one here in this team instructions and this tactic is to be more disciplined about it. So they're closing down more, but they're not going in like idiots and tackling and getting loads of yellow cards, which I found on
yeah.
this. The
And I want them to
tackling
keep
is
their
very,
shape. That was the
yeah.
idea of it because I've given them a fluid team shape, which means that they're going to have higher creative freedom. So I wanted to kind of rein that in a bit because A, I don't think they're good enough for that, and B, I kind of want them sticking to the plan. And the only reason it's got five instructions is that I didn't want to go with control yet, which is why I added the push higher up and the close down more, because they would be kind of default with a control mentality. But I didn't want that adventurous style. I wanted a patient style, but I used those two instructions to kind of counter out. So it's not really a counter attack game. It's more of a patient patient game with a high line and closing down. It's weird. It does work,
It
but
works,
it's
yeah.
yeah. But I don't want them having the extras that come with control, which is like the higher tempo and all that sort of stuff. So I'll stick with
I
counter.
think it's good that you haven't gone for one of the. A lot of people tend to go for one of the team instructions in the possession column, where a lot of them tend to go for they like to play this Barcelona style, so they assume that they've got to have retained possession and the shorter passing. But as soon as you put on that shorter passing, that is going to be the minimum that them players are going to do. They're just going to short pass, short pass, short pass.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
find
in
it
the
too
game,
extreme.
yeah, sometimes in the game you're going to need a long pass, maybe out of the back, just to get the ball forward. That hoof ball, yeah, it's sometimes a very, very dull and boring game to watch if they're just playing hoof ball all the time. But taking all of these possession ones off, they've given the freedom of creating their own options, if that's how you can put it. They
Yeah,
seem to come short to get the ball, or if they need to send it long, they send it long. You're not just limiting them to short passing or
yeah.
the more direct passing, which is one of them.
But of
But
course, you could do that with this if you wanted to. You could put
yeah,
retain possession on, but you know then if you have retained possession that you're going to reduce the passing like length.
mm,
There's going to be shorter passing, and you're going to reduce tempo as well, and a little bit of width. And I don't want that. I don't. It doesn't suit what I want to do, so I'll leave that one off.
yeah, I
I
think
do sometimes though. If I'm trying to hold on to a lead, then
yeah
I'll
during
obviously
the
want to
game,
give them the ball more. Yeah, but
that's
yeah,
when
again, this is my base. Like I am changing this all the time during the game. It just always depends on how the game is actually playing out.
mm, is it, I mean, I think the only one that I have seemed to put on if I'm holding a 1-0 lead and it's what the 82nd minute, I just put go route one on. They can hoof the ball anywhere into the crowds, into the streets, which you can always see on lower league management, which is very fun on the Football Manager. Hoof the ball anywhere, I'll be happy with a 1-0 win, and it seems to work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've got to go for it, haven't you? At the end of the game, if you're chasing it.
It
That's
is
what a
a
lot of people suffer with when the AI does that to them and they can't deal with it.
it's fantastic, and the way he has described it. I feel anyone go on this post. The way he described how he uses his tactics, all the PIs, which is the player instructions, what he's looking for in his goalkeeper, centre defenders, and the wing backs, the role they're playing. There's not too many player instructions for each player.
No,
The central midfield is possibly the one that has the most.
definitely, yeah.
They roam and they're running wide. The close down more is the one that has the most work rate. So you have to look at your players, and that is explaining why. So it shows that you have to think about your tactic in football. You can't just go, well, I'll just throw that tactic in and that'll do. And then, as we know, we get a lot of people coming on the group saying, well, I can't get my tactic to work, or they'll start blaming that SI have brought out a new update and their tactic isn't working because of that. You have to go back and look and always watch your game. I think you watch your game on comprehensive, don't you? Or is it
Yeah,
key?
every always comprehensive, every
Yeah,
single one.
exactly. And always use pre-season to look at how your tactic is flowing out, how
Yeah,
it's playing, because you can always find mistakes somewhere. A tactic is never finished. And as we said last week, and I think we said it the week before, check the average positions, the passing on the analysis of a tactic after your game, during pre-season, during your season, because you can always change your tactic during the season. I wouldn't suggest to change it too much. But if there's something little that you need to tweak that can get you that win, why not change it? You are the manager. That is your job, to try and find this balance in your tactic, find the mistakes, and try and
you're right,
eradicate the
and
mistakes.
I've had games where my high line just hasn't worked. You know, they've got pacey attackers, they've got a guy in midfield who can play a great pass up to them, so they just completely bypass my high line, and then my keeper's slow to react, and they score. And I don't want that to keep happening, so I'll take the push higher up off. I'll keep the closing down because I want them to keep doing that. But sometimes you just have to accept that it's not working. Change it.
Mm. And you've always got to think, anyone who does use this tactic, if it doesn't work, some tactics don't work for all clubs. You've got to look at your players, and sometimes a basic 4-4-2. I've said in the past 4-4-2 doesn't work, but in the lower leagues 4-4-2 is fantastic. And there is a post by Paul who made the going back to 4-4-2, and it shows that it does work. It's a very, very simple tactic, and he has put in a lot of player instructions that takes out the weaknesses of 4-4-2. You can get draws with it if you're in the lower leagues and you're struggling. You just need to get some points on the board. Any tactic can work as long as it's built around your image. I've never seemed to agree with downloading tactics because that's come from a person's own philosophy. But if you want to use Ben tactic, feel free. I've been using it, so I can swallow my own words there to not download tactics. But I thought, why not? Ben seems to be the master. Let's see how this works. And
Well, it's very kind of you, but I mean, my tactic isn't supposed to be a plug and play one. There's no such thing as far as
Yeah,
I know. But what I wanted to put it up for was just to show people that if you put the thinking behind it, then you can make it work with anybody. You just have to have the right players. If you don't have the right players, it's not going to work, even if it's absolutely foolproof, which no tactic ever is, of course, because every opponent is different.
yeah. I mean, it's a great tactic, and tactics are. I mean, here we are again. I think it's been the fourth week running we're talking about tactics, but we've always got Ben here, and tactics are a wonderful thing to talk about on Football Manager. There's endless things that we could talk about for tactics, and we'll probably be here next week talking something else about tactics. There's so much that you can talk about, but we will move on to something that is ran through our Facebook group, and we are trying to plug it. I think we have got a few teams left that need a manager, even though it's not updated on the website. So smack me for need not updating that. But
yeah, it's been out of date now.
This is our Premiership table for our FM online league that we do run every year, and it has been running now for 3 years, I believe, or 3 seasons. I should put that, not 3 years. And Ben, you're now seventh. Wow, you were bottom. Did you win your last game?
Who was it against? I can't remember.
I'll have to have a look at the fixtures. This is the Premiership Day. What we've done, we've changed it this year. We had the 20 Premier League teams, but I thought for this year we're going to include and make it harder the top 20 teams from around the world, excluding Barcelona. Barcelona weren't included because of their transfer ban for some reason in the site that I looked up for the top 20 teams. But it's very fun when you can get all of a group together playing against each other. We've recently just come out of a transfer window where we've been able to buy a few players. Paul is also in, our boss. He is the Dortmund manager. He's 8th at the moment, but I think he's trying to find the balance in his tactic. He keeps telling to me. I'm 5th, and Leon, which amazingly Nicholas, if he's listening, top of the league. And you look at that, he's doing brilliantly, fantastically. Real Madrid, who you would expect to have got some amazing players, they've got Messi, Suarez, Neymar now. Some fantastic players, but you question the balance of the team. A lot of attacking players in that team. So how is he going to build his tactic? And what happens, well, you'll see that the teams are in yellow and grey. Them teams will end up at the end of the season going into a Champions League sort of semi-final and then final. The bottom 2 in red, as you can predict, get relegated. So you kind of need to push on, Ben, and avoid that. Don't want to get Chelsea relegated. He has. Ben has swapped. Who were you before?
Milan.
And he bought some very good players, and I'm surprised you left, considering the players you bought. But
you can't turn down Chelsea.
You can't turn down Chelsea. It's a very, very good point. This is the Championship teams that we had. So you've just seen the Premiership. It's Championship, Premiership. There is no real difference because the team quality is just totally random. We've got Bayern Munich in the Championship, which you'd never expect, but the teams are just randomised first season. Second season, that's when the promotions and relegations will start taking place. So you'll see the better teams up in the Premiership and the not so good teams down in the Championship. But the competition's always going to be there. Manchester United are doing well. I think they, from what I'd seen earlier, Noah, who is the Man United manager now, I think he lost 4-1 to somebody. Where the defence, which we can talk about Man United's defence in the football podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's bought many players. I don't think Man United have done any transfers in this. It's very interesting. No, it's very interesting, and I like to see how players are playing. And it gets the group together, and I think Ben has always enjoyed it. And we've got a game coming up, so I think we can talk about that next week and try and promote this even more. How do we go? Because as we've just been talking about earlier, we seem to have the same philosophy of tactics, and we found that last year, didn't we? As well, we always seem to play a very similar tactic, or we'd end up trying to figure out what is that person going to play, what is Ben going to play.
Well, I've given all my secrets away now, so I've had to I've spent the past week coming up with a new one. So
that's the trouble when you're trying to post a tactic. You give, especially if you're in the online league and you give your tactics away. So a lot of people, when we after pre-season, a lot of people like to go, we'll play friendlies, or we'll get a friendly fixtures together. And they're like, they don't want to give their tactic away, which is fair enough. But why not Why not play friendlies? Because you've got to get used to. I think you started as Chelsea's on FM to try and build a tactic for this online league. I believe, Ben, you said earlier.
I started to save with my online team, so with the transfers I've made and everything,
Yeah,
because I wanted to try out how it would fare against the AI, and I've got it down pretty well. I'm unbeaten now by Christmas, so pretty confident in it.
yeah. And this is the dedication that Ben shows to the online league, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that do the same. They'll start a save. I have a little save going with PSG. I haven't seemed to got anywhere because I've been very busy lately with university work and work outside of that as well. But I'm trying to pin a tactic down that gets me playing and getting all them players in, because I've looked at PSG. I've got Ibrahimovic, I've got Cavani, I've got a few players that I can't seem to get them all playing together, because I think someone posted that you can't seem to play two up top, and I kind of agree with that and kind of don't agree with that. But the tactic that I'm using, I think you've seen it before, Ben, the strangely shaped one
Yes.
I've been using with PSG, and I've kind of changed some of the player roles to suit these sort of PSG players, where I have a Deuter somewhere. I've taken out some of the very strange roles and just made it very simple, so the shape is now all there. There's no gap between the wing back and the Deuter. So it
Right.
all seems to be building, and I'm hoping to push on. I managed to beat Real Madrid, which is a team that, if you look at his team, where we said earlier, he's got a lot of very, very good players, and you look at that team and go, I'm going to get smashed in this game. But if you play the right tactics against teams like that, you can win quite easily. And I think that's where this online league, it's very good, because you can challenge yourself against other people's tactics and their own visions. Even if they have downloaded a tactic and they're using it in the online league, you've still got to fight against that tactic and push on. There's the pride of always Bayern Munich look like they're going to go as they are in real life. Who is the Bayern Munich manager at the moment? Mike
Mike
Counter.
Canton
Obviously
absolutely
doing
smashed me. I played him on the first day with AC Milan, and he beat me 5-0.
well. That's Bayern Munich, and he hasn't made any transfers either. But Bayern
Doesn't
Munich,
need to.
you don't need to. Their team is absolutely fantastic, and they're looking like they're either going to go 9 games unbeaten, which I think will be the first time that a manager has gone unbeaten, so that'll get a special mention. So, Mike, if you do listen back, 9 games unbeaten, you'll get a special mention on the group. Maybe some more prize money, always some incentive for the next transfer window. If you're going to look to buy some players, you might not have to, but you're coming up against some tough opposition. You'll have me and Ben in there, and be scared. But I think we will promote, as I said I would, if James is listening. The WizKids, our very good friends at the Football Manager WizKids, updated their database today. It now has over 7,000 changes. So feel free to download that. Absolutely fantastic database. Update of a lot of things, including players, staff. Goes down to the lower leagues. You rename the competitions, so you don't have to download the real names fix with this, but some of them you may have to. And also with this, I don't know if he has. I may have to speak to him afterwards. Some people earlier I've seen posting that Martin Odegaard is appearing twice on their database. You have to check. You can check using the data editor. If he appears twice, you will have to delete one of them for him to appear once, because SI have now put him into the game. And we can do it next week if anyone wants to put a face on, because I noticed that this one doesn't have a face on, but there is a way that you can change to put the face on, which also link into changing. Hopefully I've still got the post up. I have. As we said earlier, SI updated the Football Manager database to 15.2, which messed up completely every skin. But this simple fix that I'm hoping that I can finish in 3 minutes, because that's how long we've got left. Right, this is Andre. So thank Andre for this, who did this post. basically what you have to do, this is using the Alvagina skin, but whatever skin you have, you would have started off with this here. Can you see my cursor, Ben?
Yep.
Yep, you can. You'll start off with that. That is the name of the skin. All you have to do is what Andrea said there, change that file to skin underscore config. And from there, you need to open the skin. You can open it in Notebook, so you can right click, open with, and open with Notebook. I'll make this big so you can see it. And basically what you need to do, usually you'll see here, there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. You now need 6 lines. So another line needs to be added in, and the line needs to be this one here called string ID, skin name, and the value, and then the name of the skin. So this is the Alvahanja 15 Pro Isogam. That's a mouthful there. But if it's a Scorpio skin, he has updated it himself. But if you want to feel brave and fix it yourself, that's the way you can do it. Just put skin name and then Scorpio, whichever it is. He has 3 versions: the DF face pack, he has the mini sidebar, and then he has Scorpio. So all you'd have to do is put Scorpio or Scorpio DF11 and Scorpio small sidebar, I think it is. It's quite an easy fix if you know what you're doing, and there are a few people that have struggled with it. The only thing that Andre may have missed, which some people seem to forget about, the update is always on this file as well, where it will say minimum 15.0.0, which is what Football Manager started at. Sometimes you may have to put 15.2.0, which is the latest update. But if anyone does struggle, you can always send me a message, send me the config file. I'm willing to help anybody out, which is what we're here for. Or you can send a message to Ben, which can always forward it to me, because Ben might not know how to do it. But it's a simple fix if you know what you're doing, as I'm saying. But if you don't know how to do it, send it to me. I'm happy to fix it for you. You can always thank Andre for this. He went through it quite simply. Sorry, where's it gone? There it is. And he explains it quite clearly. So if you do want this, I can pin the post back after this, and you can quite easily fix your skins. So we are done for tonight. Thank you for listening, and thank you again for coming on, Ben. You will be here every week, and the next show will be on Thursday, I'm hoping, when Paul will be back, when he's not got toothache. Thank you for listening, guys. See you later.
Good night.
Stop.